all sorts of different things and what they wanted to do with social media. So it was a very general course. And what I've tried to do in the presentation, which I'll put on the Extension Oz, not the Extension Oz, the Google page that we shared at boot camp, I'll put everything on there as well, this presentation and the original slides, so that you can just go and have a look at it and mine it, because I've whacked in heaps of content for you, because that's what I got out of it. So you can just basically scroll through what you're interested in, because I'm sure that you're not going to be interested in everything. So I wanted to go through what's changed, what we mean by contagious content, and then I've got some other tips in there. And then I was going to talk about LinkedIn, because that's what we've been using. Unfortunately, I'm the only person, I think, on this call that's actually using LinkedIn, but doesn't matter. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If anyone has got... I can hear myself echoing now. Oh, that's better. If anyone's got any questions, please just interrupt me at any time. I don't really like the sound of my own voice, so I'm very happy to not talk and just take any questions that you've got, because it's all about you. It's not really about me. Coming from a marketing background, I thought this was really interesting. The first thing that I got out of the course was what's changed is that we've moved from a business to business or business to consumer marketing environment to human to human. And I think this is really important, because I used to call it a segment of one, but I think in social media what we're really talking about is making people feel like you're actually talking to them. It's all about connection. And I found this post by Jacinda Arden online this morning, and it's just a lovely little snippet, 2 minutes 43 seconds of her talking directly to the camera as the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And it's so inviting and warm. I just think it's a really good example of what we mean by human to human, and you feel like she's actually talking to you, and you can see from the likes that she's really engaged her audience. So that's what we mean by human to human. And I think for us as me sitting in Spring Street in Melbourne, I'm a long way from my target audience, and I think the more we can do to connect with them, the better. So by human to human, that we talk about 6 different elements. So know your target market and what they want. And I'm sure everyone in this webinar knows their target audience very well, because everyone's got a much more practical extension background than I do. What do we mean by quality? So quality is more important than quantity. And I know in my early days as a social media curator at the moment that I'm sort of thinking all about quantity, that I'm just trying to keep it up there. But I think I'm shifting my focus towards quality, and I'll talk about that a bit more as we move through. But in the course, they also suggested using many different ways to communicate with people, because social media is just one option. People also like, as you know, face-to-face, video, webinars, email. And they really focused, the message they really drove home was go to where the target market is. So, there's a lot of, it's interesting because everyone that emailed me back when I asked what social media channels you're using, everyone said Facebook and Twitter, which is really good, because I originally did want to use Facebook, but I got our community of practice really wanted to use LinkedIn. So I think that's really important. They drove our LinkedIn choice, and it was all about going to where the target market is. Community. So as I was saying before, with that Jacinda Arden post, make people feel good about themselves. I think it's all about feeling like you're part of something worthwhile and exciting, and that you generate that through your how we manage our social media, or that's what I'm trying to do through how I'm currently trying to engage with our target audience. Storytelling is another element, and I think in human to human marketing, it's about creating that narrative. And I think people are really good at telling stories, and I just think it's about that sort of, getting that story across, that engagement, that eye contact, that video, that sharing snippets and bits of information that really engages people. And social media is a perfect way to do that. And I particularly like this one, the last one, trusted advisor, because in the extension sphere, this is really what extension has traditionally been about, and it fits so well with what social media potentially has to offer. So they talk about how you share content and being creative using different types of products such as webinars, blogs, white papers, and ebooks. And I happen to sit next to my colleague Becky Barker, who looks after the Rural Women's Network. And Becky and I have been talking about what we're going to do in 2019 and coming up with lots of different ideas and looking at different ways to engage through webinars and you know, articles on LinkedIn and all sorts of different things. So I think that's another element, just to, you know, try and get our message across in different ways. So that's how we can be, you know, really engaging in that human to human element. So contagious content. What is contagious content? Well, you can see, if you want to, at the end of this, I've included all the links. You can see jonaberger.com at the bottom. Go and have a look at his website, because he's really the one that's come up with this concept of contagious content. And I'm sure that everyone in their personal life sees lots of contagious content online, particularly in social media. And I think it's probably not quite as linear in terms of how we translate it for ourselves from a work point of view, but I think it's something to think about, and it sort of brings back that human element. So I think it's something we can probably, I know it's something I've got to think more about, because it's easy for me to sort of focus on the content and the sort of the granularity of it and the depth of it, and maybe miss some of those nuances about I'm actually relating to people through the content and making it more engaging. So there's 6 steps in this. So the first one is, and I've included all the links here, but I am not savvy enough, unfortunately, to be able to make them work. So they're all there. You just, after the presentation, if you just want to click through and have a look at some of those links, it'll give you a bit more insight into what we mean by each one. So social currency, so this is about finding the inner, what it is that makes people talk about something, what it is that makes it engaging. And in the example there, it's got, you can click on the link, it goes, will it blend? And it's actually someone trying to sell blenders through social media. I mean, to me, that doesn't sound, not that I like cooking, but it doesn't sound any more boring than selling blenders. But the guy's actually really funny, and he's done really well out of it. So have a look at that. Triggers. So consider the context and grow your habitat so that people are frequently triggered by your product. I don't know if anyone remembers, I guess having teenage kids, I do remember that annoying song that Rebecca Black launched on a video called, and it went quite viral, called Friday, and it's all about her in a car with her friends, and they're singing this really catchy tune. And it was just a really good example of, even though it was a one-hit wonder, what triggers people's interest. So trying to understand what is going to be a trigger for our target audiences, I think, is really important. And I'll talk a bit more about that in some more slides. Here I've got an example of, you know, something that arouses emotion. You know, there's really bad ads on TV that sell insurance, and I just hate them, the banking ads, where they're just all emotional, and you know that they're trying to pull on your heartstrings. Well, I think, are we able to translate any of that into some of our content? I think, actually, talking about my colleague again, Becky, she does a really good of that. She's not online, but she does a really good is a really good example of that with her Rural Women's Network, and I'll show you something that she's done a bit further on. But it's probably a bit harder in a food innovation network, I think, for me to draw an emotion, but I have to think more laterally about that. The more public something is, the more likely people will imitate it. So the link there shows you how at some sort of trade show, Lego made a real life-sized caravan out of Lego, and it sort of takes you through they do this really fast. I've forgotten what the word is for it. I'm sure Kel and Yanni will know. Fast, and actually I'll talk about it a bit further on, building of this Lego caravan. It just looks amazing. So they talk about making content public so that people see it in different formats and venues, and therefore they get that sort of sense of triangulation, and they get more confident in the content. Make it practical. The example I've given you there is how to make tofu, because I currently love making tofu from scratch, and you know, and my kids like making rockets and, you know, stuff like that they can set off at the farm. So very practical content about how making things transparent about how you actually do something. So at some point when we get, we've got an innovation voucher program that's linked to our Food Innovation Network, and after Caretaker, or after the election in Victoria, I want to make a video that shows people how to actually apply for a voucher, because I think that can be quite daunting. I've had lots of feedback about, government vouchers and how difficult they are to get. So that was going to be my really practical video that I'm planning on making once we get access to the funds after the election. And once again, stories. So create a narrative or story that people want to tell, which carries your idea along for the ride. And I think, I think that's just another way of talking about what we've already talked about in terms of a narrative. So the steps, that's the elements of making contagious content. I'm sorry I can't show you the links, but please go and have a look at them at some point. So I thought this was a really interesting slide. This came out of the 2-day program, as all this content did, but it talks about identifying what are points of pain for your target audience. And I really like this because farmers are really good at talking about what annoys them and what their points of pain are. And I think that's something that we can potentially address. The same with the food industry, same with food manufacturers, and they'll tell us what their problems are. And I think it's about being able to then turn that into something that we can help them with through our social media and make it more valuable to them. It also talks about products and services, so making things more transparent through case studies. So, or going behind the scenes and showing how things operate. People love that because it makes them feel like they're in something special that they wouldn't have otherwise seen. Talk about your organisation, the people, events. Like, I don't know if you've seen the program The Office, which to me is the most boring thing in the world that you could possibly watch, but my kids have got every single episode of that and they just love it. I know it's funny and it's entertaining, or they think it is, but it's an office environment and that somehow becomes interesting and engaging. So people making things transparent, making things visually available, because apparently most 70% of the population are visual. That's what they want to see stuff. So extending the community, so talk about in social media, talk about local events and issues and make it relevant at a local level. And then industry, so we do a lot of this. We post a lot of reports and studies and events that we want people to engage with that's relevant to them in their industry, in the food innovation sector. So that's just some ideas about content. And on the right, it just talks about how often and what you can consider when you're developing your social media content. So next slide. I like this slide because it talks about if you've come from a marketing background, you'll be aware of this whole idea about awareness, consideration, decision, adoption, and advocacy. It's also just the adoption of new technology model. It's just another way of describing that. But in this metrics map, I thought it was a really good reference because it gives you an idea of, depending on what stage you're at in terms of with your target audience, what you want them to do. It just gives some ideas about what type of post you could be using in terms of whether or not you want to create awareness or get people on your website from social media onto your extensionalized platform, and what sort of things you can do to create that type of outcome or behavior change. So have a look at that map in more detail after today, but I think it's a really useful tool. And writing for social media, I really like this because it talks about what tone, how do we want to come across in our website, and the need to have a consistent tone so that no matter who's actually curating the site, like long after I've gone, that that there's some consistency, so people feel like that in that human to human market, that they're actually connecting with the tone you've created. And in the actual training, they talked about creating avatars. I didn't actually put that in, but I'll post the original content and you can have a look at that. I didn't personally think I needed to take it that far, but it just talks about, how do you want to make it engaging, enthusiastic? Do you want to sound young and innovative, or do you want to sound informative and professional? Anyway, have a think about tone and then sharing that tone across the team so that whoever's posting on your social media site shares the same sort of understanding of what the tone should sound like. So just some things to think about here. If your social media channel was a person, what kind of personality would they have, or would it have? if your channel was a person, what's their relationship to the stakeholder? Are they a coach, a friend, a teacher, or an inappropriate uncle, which doesn't sound appropriate in our context, but in other contexts where it might be appealing to a teenage audience, it could work. And finally, how do you want your stakeholders to think about your community of practice? So, you know, when they talk about the Food Innovation Network, what is it I want them to think about? Do they want it to be a trusted source of information? You know, somewhere they can go to a one-stop shop. You know, what's the point of coming to our network or being a part of it? And I love this. I love this wheel, because that's currently all the different sources of software that's available for different parts of your engagement process with your target audience. And I went through this, I think I was sitting in an airport one day and just worked through this wheel just to see what if I have everything covered, which I obviously don't, but at least it's something you can have a look at and think about. You know, what tools are available at each stage of the sort of engage, reach, act, convert you know, paradigm, which is similar to that other social media matrix model. So as you can see, it's a very busy space. And one thing the lecturer kept emphasizing in her business is social media marketing for her clients, is that this space changes so fast, like it's constantly changing. And I know some of the people on this webinar haven't set their site up yet, but like Amy, and you're looking to do an AIM at some point, like in November, and I'm sure some of this content that I'm sharing now will be out of date by then. So at the end, I've got resources for how to stay up to date. And yeah, so it's just a really dynamic and exciting space. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about the Food Innovation Network and just what I've done with LinkedIn so far, because that's the space that I've been working. So that picture we had that picture professionally taken, and we've shared it pretty widely across LinkedIn and internally and just across our posts and, you know, internal posts to promote the network. But having a professional photo taken, I think, has been really useful for us. So I thought I'd share the most successful post we've had to date is this one we posted in October. And the reason why it worked so well was because after my training, I thought I really need to do something that's just LinkedIn related. So I contacted this lady called Sue Elson that takes CAE courses on LinkedIn. And she and I met, and she gave me some hints about what makes an engaging post, and that has been so useful. I've got so much value out of that. And she said, what you need to do is start with the word today. So you'll see today the Victorian Food Innovation Network launches on LinkedIn. I mean, I can't do this with every post, but she said it just makes people feel like they're finding out about something that's happening right now. She said, use photos with people in them that are looking at the camera. So that's why we had that photo taken of the team. And then use at and then someone's name to connect someone that you want. So they'll get an update on, this is just for LinkedIn, but they'll get an update about the fact that you've posted them into the post. And so that's exactly what I did. And that way they were able to share it across their networks, which gave us a much broader coverage, which was really good. And use hash keyword to be discoverable. So I've been using words like food innovation, you can see there, food technology, food trends, and then using them repeatedly so that if people search in LinkedIn, those words we might come up through a sort of more organic search. And then reply to all comments. So I have done that. And where I've had people that I haven't met reply, I've actually invited them to the network, invited them to follow us on LinkedIn, and then invited them to the Food Innovation Network Extensionalised platform. Yeah, so you can see we got 991 impressions. It's at the bottom of that page, which means that's how many people saw it, which has been fantastic. And that led to a spike in, where is it? There, you'll see it led to a spike in the number of followers. So we've now got about nearly 70 followers, which is great. And you can see the pie chart down on the bottom right corner, you can see that 72% of our viewing on our Extensionalised platform is coming from new visitors to the site, which is really good. Sorry, just scrolling back. Yeah, so that's just some of the data that you can get from the LinkedIn pages when you manage them. So here I've just shared some of Sue's stuff that I would highly recommend. And the other good thing about LinkedIn is that it's relevant to everyone because it's all about, part of it is all about looking for jobs. So by all means, go through and have a look at, have a look at Sue's stuff on there. It's fantastic. But I've just added a few links there about how to write a search engine optimized article on LinkedIn and primary and secondary keywords for LinkedIn and 20 ways to encourage a LinkedIn post to go viral. And then I've been using Buffer, and thanks so much to Yanni for her help with this, because once you set up on Buffer, it's so easy. She's saying we love Buffer. Yeah, that's right. One thing though that Sue Wilson did say to me is that Buffer, LinkedIn likes its own content. So if you add content directly into LinkedIn, it'll preference that over a buffered content, but I just don't have time to do that every day. So I love Buffer because I can sort of set my posts up for the following week, and then I can add stuff in during the week that I've added myself. So this is the type of stuff I get from Buffer. So you can see that I've got a posting schedule there, and you can see I've got 5 posts queued up. And I've actually I'm only posting, I looked at when are people most likely to be looking at LinkedIn, and for some weird reason, the main time is 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. I don't know why. People must have a bit of a slump in their week or something. And then I've mainly trying to pick commute times on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And that's about as much as I can manage at the moment, having 5 posts. And the other thing that I was told with Buffer is it's important to make comments. Don't just be lazy like I have been and just post stuff directly. I should actually be adding some sort of comment so it's a bit more personalized, and I will start doing that. Yeah, and so you can see from here that from Google Analytics that our social acquisition is up to 76, and that's way up on what it was. And that's really just since we got LinkedIn. And because our account's only a 6-month trial, I have to really demonstrate the value of it, because we've got quite a rigorous process to be able to get a social media account. And in my dream world, I'm hoping to get a Facebook and a Twitter account as well. I'm not across LinkedIn, but I just love to be able to broaden it so that I can share so I can go to where people are. And yeah, so I'm hoping I can really make this work. So just some info updates on Facebook. So from the course I got, the Facebook is constantly changing, and I'm sure on your phone Facebook feed you've seen Facebook Live comes up now as an option, and there's heaps and heaps of content on there. And this one lady, Marie Smith, she teaches about how to use Facebook Live. I think for us, when we go to field days, or when we're doing, farm walks, or for me in a factory, or, from boot camp, to be able to live stream some content, people just seem to really engage with that. Like, I love all the Vic Pol stuff, Victoria Police, when they do live posts, because it makes it feel like it's real in real time for me. So she was the lady that took the course was really emphasizing the power of Facebook Live, and then Facebook live streaming, which I've provided a link to. And then in Facebook, they've suggested using demonstrations. So, I mean, this may not be what you're doing, but if you're, say, doing some sort of irrigation technology, actually demonstrating how it works, and being out in an irrigation channel, or, fertigation, or I'm trying to think of practical farm examples, AI and cattle or something, just actually demonstrating it on social media is a really good option. And then I've got, have a look at the link, Bring It to Life, Baba G's Kitchen, which is actually like a kitchen that goes out to farmers markets and stuff, and they just make the food look so yummy. You definitely do not want to watch that when you're hungry. And Becky did this fantastic contest on the Rural Women's Network. Have a look at that. That's on her Facebook post. Yay, Beck. That shows, this is the photo that won. They sent out a message to all the ladies that are, all the people that follow them on Facebook, and asked for photos. And this is a Facebook photo that won. So you can see, I can't actually see the number of likes there, but it's just a beautiful picture of out in the Becky's messaging me, I think, but I can't see it. Yes, this is the photo that won. So it was just a great way of engaging with the audience and really has that sort of empathy, and I think it's just a really clever photo. So if you have a look, if you're interested in contests, it's potentially a great way to engage your audience. I've just added the promotional guidelines they have on Facebook and also some of the Australian legislation that you need to just check when you run, what you need to know when you're running a competition. So some great things are happening on Facebook, and I'm sure there's change. It just changes all the time, and apparently they don't tell you when they're changing, but there are actually people you can follow. Oh, Becky's saying our social media numbers really rocketed during this competition. Well worth it. Thanks, Becky. Yeah, so I'd love to come up with some sort of idea for a Food Innovation Network competition, but I think I need to do some brainstorming first. Yeah. And then Instagram, this is like, I'm not actually, I am on Instagram, but I don't use it, and that's just for personal. But I just wanted to share. So this is my friend Liz Egan, who has a winery called Wanturna Estate Vineyard. And the thing I got out of the training at RMIT was they talk about the composition of thirds, the rule of thirds. And by that, they mean having a theme. So you can see here, there's a real theme around farming, and it's beautiful, and then there's the girls in the vineyard and food and just all that feel good stuff. User generated content of black yarn. Oh, sorry. Oh, you, it's not to me, sorry. Yeah, just that yarn is just posting. So you can really see there that there's video content, and it's so pretty, and yeah, it just creates that sort of rule of thirds. So I've just included a link there around composition. Apparently you can't actually do this on your computer. You have to do it all on your phone, and I would not be tech savvy enough to do that, but I'm sure, I know someone mentioned they were going to be using Instagram, and I think it's a very visual way of demonstrating and what we can do, what people can do, and it's really engaging. So hyperlay, sorry, that was what I was trying to talk about earlier. That second point was you can do this sped up. So you can do video and then really speed it up, and that way you can get quite a lot out, and it's that sort of fast moving video image. Boomerang, I can't remember what that is, but have a look at it. That video talks about how you do it. Yeah, it's gone out of my mind. And now Instagram and Facebook are linked. You can actually share your content across the two platforms, which might be really helpful for people that are on both. And Instagram Live is competing with Facebook Live, so you can also do the, do a big announcement, launch a new product, show the behind the scenes stuff, and look at what's happening at your factory or your farm, or do a live Q&A with your audience. I think that's, I mean, that's a fantastic option, I think, at some point. That I should be thinking about. And I should say, in all this, one thing I did get out of the course was that we need a social media plan. So I'm in the process of developing a plan, and there's heaps of templates that she's provided in the slides that I'll share. And having a social media plan, I think, is a really good way for me then to have some structure around how you would actually put this all together, because it's just, I know I'm sort of dumping a whole lot of stuff on you, but you can come back to it, and then hopefully it'll be useful as a reference point. Yeah, and this one was really good. This was about, I'm almost at the end now, so this was just a brief update on Twitter and YouTube. One thing, so this is Jamie Oliver on Twitter. So he put out, or it might be on Instagram. I'm sorry, I'm not actually sure what I've done this on. But the point was, he's engaged. He's got 10,347 comments, and all he did was ask people, guys, which mag cover shall I choose for the Indian-inspired next issue of my magazine? You decide. So he's really empowering the audience to make a comment, and he got 10,000 comments. I mean, I think that's just, I personally wouldn't comment on that, but the fact that, people engage with him directly, and whether or not he uses the feedback, I don't know, but just that level of engagement is amazing. Yeah, this is really interesting. According to the presenter, farmers are most likely to be on Twitter, and I tried to just look up briefly before we came on, on the webinar, why. I've got no idea. Someone else might know why farmers like Twitter, but yeah, it's really hit the market. So if you're in that farmer market, I think Twitter's a really good option. And Twitter's really good. People post stuff about, they give you feedback on your products and services. So a lot of companies use it to gather information about whether or not the market likes, their target audience likes their product. And you can interact, yeah, and that's right, interacting with your followers is really what it's all about. And then YouTube, so there's a really good, have a look at the live broadcast from Turkish Airlines. Like, Turkish Airlines is not my go-to airline, but it just makes the intangible that you're in the cockpit flying it with the pilots, and they did a really good video, and it's a really good sort of story. So it just gives you a bit of insight into how you could potentially do something that's live and also gives you that sort of insight and makes you feel special. And I really liked YouTube's also really good. I know it's pretty obvious, I guess, for housing content, but we've shared content from our digital YouTube account that is it's housed on YouTube, but we've got some really good collateral on there, and we just repost it occasionally to sort of create that interest, and it's just a really good place for us to house stuff without actually having to have it embedded in our links ourselves. Yeah, so, and at the end here, I've just got some, she gave us all these resources of places you can go to keep up to date with what's happening. And to be honest, I haven't been through them all, but at least it's something you might find something in there that's engaging and helpful, and yeah, it helps you stay up across what it's all about. I should also say that I haven't put anything on about Trello, but Becky very kindly set up we've got like a little team here, because no one else in my team is actually working on social media, where we're sharing our content. So when we find something interesting, we put it up on our Trello page and just share it amongst ourselves, even though we're managing different social media sites. So I just thought that might be useful for other people, that they can actually share content in their office, or in some way that helps us all connect. Yeah, Kel says we love Trello. Yeah, so I hope that was useful, and sorry, I just talked non-stop. That's just not what I meant to do. And if anyone's got any comments or anything they'd like to share or say, then yeah, over to you, Gavin, and happy to chat about anything.
That was tremendous, Nicki. You got through heaps of really practical and useful information in a short period of time, and having those resource links for us all, that's going to be really useful. So really well done. We'll pull this together into an article as well, and have those links in there, and we'll circulate the presentation, and this is being recorded as well, so we'll link that from the articles. Questions, anyone? I'll pop them in the chat, or anything anybody would like to share, or if it's prompted anything for you that you've been doing and you think it's worth sharing. We can just spend a few minutes giving that opportunity. Any questions or things that people would like to add? Okay, nothing at this stage.
Nicki, it's Cal. The course,
Cal.
was it run? How are you going? That was, yeah, great work. And from boot camp to now, what an amazing, you're like fully empowered in a way. So the course, was that run during the weekday, or is it a weekend, or?
No, it was a Thursday, Friday, I think. Yeah, I think it's,
yeah.
Are you thinking about coming down to do it, or if people want to come down?
I was just thinking it sounded really good. Like, would you recommend other people?
Highly recommend it. Yeah, it was like $650. Like, if I would have set myself along if I didn't get shouted by the department. So I'll send through the link, actually, because I didn't put it on there. And Amy just posted a question about who else was on there. Well, the girl I sat next to was so sweet. She was from a t-shirt company, and she was really wanting to use the course to not only sell t-shirts, but then potentially leverage her own career. And because there are so many jobs where companies are just looking for people with expertise in social media all the time. And she felt like there was a few people there that were, I mean, there was a lady that flew over from Indonesia to do the 2-day program, and because she wanted to promote an Indonesian university in Indonesia on social media. That just blew me away. Yeah, it was a really good course, and it was just something you could really actually leverage a whole new career on if you wanted to. It would be great to keep doing these webinars. Oh, yeah, and that's right, sharing. I would highly recommend the course. Yeah, I mean, the lady was. I'll post all the notes, Kel. So there's like 16 megabytes of stuff there.
Wow.
And it would have been more interesting if I'd actually gone into the links. But every time you go into a link, it goes through the ads. And I know Gavin could have showed me how to do it, but I'm just not that tech savvy. So I would highly recommend having a look at the links. I think the challenge for me is how do I turn. I have got a lot of value out of it, but how do I, with my target audience, a business audience, how do I create value in a social media context that's not without trivializing stuff? You know how they talk about, because it's come from that sort of consumer to consumer sort of, or company to consumer type environment, and it's got that sort of human element. But how do I translate that into a LinkedIn network for a food innovation network? That's my challenge. I haven't quite worked that out, but yeah, if someone wants to run a course on that, I'll come.
Yeah, that's a challenge, isn't it? Like even the young farmers one we're setting up, like how do you frame it, and how do you, like, I like that idea of a potential avatar, but then how do you even go about it, and what do you do without being too corny or causing issues? And but yeah, I guess you sort of give it a go and learn as you go, don't you? So
Yeah, exactly. That's what I decided
yeah,
out of this, out of boot camp and
yeah,
this. It was just suck it and see.
yeah.
Any other quick questions or comments? Just place things in the chat box too, particularly if you've got any other suggestions or ideas that we can all share. I'm going to copy those points out of that chat box and add to the follow-up. Beautiful. Well, that's a lot of information and a lot of value in a short period of time, Nicki.
Thanks, Gavin.
And you survived the baptism of fire with your computer rebooting. So I think on behalf of everyone, can we just thank Nicki in that chat box there? Is probably easiest. We will send this stuff around, and we shall organise. We've got a webinar on communities of practice, actually, innovation networks, with a guy in New Zealand coming along in the first week in March. I think it's December the 6th. We'll send around more details. For the Victorian departmental people who are joining, just remember, or just be aware that for us outsiders to your organisation, our calendar invites are ending up in your junk mail as you've gone to SharePoint. So you just need to let us back in. I'll try and remember to send you emails too to remind you all. With that, all good. Can we, yeah, thanks very much, Nicki, and we'll provide the feedback.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.
So, Nicki, with your presentation, with your slides, we can upload those probably into the presentations in the managers folder if you like. Shall we do that?
Yeah, that'd be great. Anywhere you want.
Okay, well, we'll do that. We'll pop them in the managers folder in the presentations, and I'll send you the link.
Fantastic.
And Yanni's just mentioned to the Victorian people, she can help them not junk for my invites or other people's who are outside of
Fantastic.
the department. Thank you all. We look forward to the next one. Well done,
Thanks,
Nicki.
everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
I just sound my own voice.